The day I was discharged from the hospital, my son never came. I sat in a stiff plastic chair near the sliding glass doors, watching cars pull up, load patients, and drive away. The faint smell of antiseptic and stale coffee lingered in the air. My phone buzzed in my lap. I picked it up, expecting a quick apology for the delay. Instead, I read the text from David. "I'm too busy. Find your own way home." I stared at the screen for a long moment. "No. How are you feeling?" "Mom, no. I'll be there as soon as I can." Just a dismissal. 2 years ago, I let David and his wife, Sarah, move into my 4-bedroom house to help them save for a mortgage. I cooked, I cleaned, and I paid the property taxes. Yet, after 3 days in a hospital bed for a severe gallbladder surgery, I wasn't even worth a 20-minute drive. I didn't cry. Tears were a luxury I stopped affording myself after my husband, Richard, passed away. Instead, I felt a quiet, cold clarity settle over me. The illusion of a loving, supportive family evaporated, leaving behind the hard truth of my situation. I scrolled through my contacts and pressed call on an old number. 20 minutes later, a silver Ford Explorer pulled up to the curb. Arthur, my late husband's best friend, stepped out, rushing to help me with my small overnight bag. He looked at my pale face, his expression tight with concern. "Where's David?" Arthur frowned. "Opening the passenger door for me." "Busy," I replied. Settling into the leather seat, Arthur shook his head. "Starting the engine. Let's get you home." "Allison, you need to rest in your own bed." I buckled my seatbelt, staring straight ahead at the busy street. The home I knew wasn't waiting for me, until a driver finally pulled up. I hadn't realized how much things needed to change. I leaned closer and whispered, Drive straight to my lawyer's office." Arthur gripped the steering wheel, glancing at me sideways. "Your lawyer?" "Allison, you just had surgery." "Are you sure you don't want to go home first?" "I'm sure," I answered, watching the familiar suburban streets roll by. For the past year, my house had slowly ceased to be mine. Sarah had steadily replaced my living room furniture with modern, uncomfortable pieces. David had taken over Richard's garage workshop for his golf clubs and discarded hobby projects. I had retreated to the background of my own life, convincing myself it was temporary. I wanted to be a supportive mother, but support had turned into servitude. Mr. Hayes' office was a modest brick building near the town square. Arthur helped me out of the car, offering his arm as we navigated the short walkway. The receptionist recognized me immediately and ushered us into a quiet back room. "Mr. Hayes looked up from his desk, surprised. "Allison, I wasn't expecting you. Is everything all right?" I sat down slowly, the stitches in my side pulling slightly. "I need the original deed to my house, Thomas. The one in your fireproof safe." He frowned, leaning forward. "Of course. But why is David trying to put the house in his name? Do you need me to draft a legal notice? We can file an injunction if they are pressuring you." "No," I said firmly. "I don't need lawyers or courts to clean up my own household. I just need the physical paper to remind myself exactly whose roof they are living under." Mr. Hayes retrieved the thick envelope and slid it across the mahogany desk. I placed it carefully into my purse. There would be no lawsuits, no dramatic court battles, and no legal traps. Those things took time and energy I didn't want to waste. I had allowed my boundaries to blur, and it was my responsibility to redraw them. Arthur. I turned to my friend. We have one more stop before we head home. The local Chase Bank branch was quiet at this hour. Arthur waited in the lobby while I sat across from a young branch manager named Kevin. I handed him my ID and my debit card. I need to check the recent activity on my joint checking account, I instructed calmly. Kevin tapped away on his keyboard, turning the monitor slightly. Here you go. Mrs. Parker. The last 30 days. I scanned the lines of text. 2 years ago, I added David to this account for emergencies, in case something ever happened to me. The balance was entirely funded by my pension and Richard's life insurance. I rarely checked the ledger, trusting my son. My eyes stopped on 3 recent transactions. Yesterday, while I was waiting for my doctor to clear me, there was a $450 charge at a high-end salon. 2 days prior, an $800 charge at a boutique clothing store. And this morning, a $120 charge at a steakhouse downtown. They weren't busy. They were enjoying their weekend on my dime while I ate hospital gelatin. Kevin. I kept my voice steady. I want to open a new, individual checking account, in my name only. Certainly, Kevin nodded. Would you like to transfer the balance from the joint account? Yes. Transfer all of it, except for exactly $43.12. That is the amount David deposited last month from a refund check. He can keep his contribution. Within 15 minutes, the paperwork was signed. My funds were secure in a private account, and the joint debit card in David's wallet was now linked to practically nothing. I didn't feel angry. I felt efficient. I thanked Kevin, folded the new account documents into my purse next to the deed, and walked back out to Arthur. Done, Arthur asked, standing up. Done. I smiled faintly. Now, I'm ready to go home. But as we pulled into my driveway, I noticed the front curtains were drawn, and my antique porch chairs were completely gone. Arthur carried my bag to the front door, but I didn't need to unlock it. The door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open, stepping into the foyer. The house smelled of expensive vanilla candles, overpowering the familiar scent of lemon polish I always used. My antique mahogany hall table, a wedding gift from Richard's parents, was missing. In its place stood a stark, geometric metal console. Sarah was lounging on the living room sofa, scrolling through her phone. She looked up, her expression freezing for a fraction of a second before morphing into mild annoyance. Oh, you're back. Sarah sat up, tossing her phone onto the glass coffee table. David said you were taking a cab. Arthur drove me, I replied, not breaking eye contact. Where is my hall table? Sarah waved a hand dismissively. It was too bulky. Allison. It made the entryway look dark. I moved it to the basement. You really should rest. The doctor said you need bed rest. Right. She pointed toward the hallway. I walked past her, looking into my master bedroom. The door was open, and the bed was stripped. Several of my clothes were packed into cardboard boxes near the closet. David and I thought it would be better if you took the downstairs guest room, Sarah called out from the sofa. The master bath is just better for us getting ready for work in the mornings. It's more practical. They had moved my belongings while I was under anesthesia. They didn't ask. They didn't discuss it. They simply acted. I didn't yell. I didn't demand they move my things back immediately. Arguing with Sarah always resulted in her playing the victim, shedding quick tears to make David take her side. I simply walked into the small guest room, set my purse on the twin bed, and closed the door behind me. I needed to rest my body before I took my next step. But as I opened the nightstand to put my medication away, I found something that made my blood run cold. Inside the guest room, nightstand drawer, pushed all the way to the back, was an empty jewelry box. It was the box where I kept Richard's gold watch. I checked my purse, checked my luggage. Nothing. I walked quietly back into the living room. "Sarah," I asked calmly, "where are the spare keys to my Honda?" She didn't look up from her magazine. David took it to work. His truck is making a weird noise, and the Honda is just sitting there anyway. Why they hadn't just taken the master bedroom? They had taken my transportation. "I see." I nodded, turning back to my room. At 6 o'clock, the front door opened and David walked in. He tossed his briefcase on the metal console and walked into the kitchen. I was sitting at the small breakfast table, sipping a cup of chamomile tea. "Hey." "Mom." David opened the refrigerator, peering inside. "How was the hospital? You feeling okay?" He didn't wait for an answer before shutting the door. "What's for dinner?" "We had a brutal day at the office, and Sarah is exhausted." I took a slow sip of my tea. "I don't know." "David, I suppose whatever you decide to cook will be fine." David stopped, turning to look at me. "You didn't make anything, Mom? You've been home all afternoon. You know Sarah gets migraines if she doesn't eat by 7. I just had major surgery." "David, I am not cooking." He crossed his arms, his face flushing with irritation. "You're walking around fine. We let you stay here. The least you could do is help out. You let me stay here." I tilted my head, setting my teacup down. "You know what I mean?" he muttered, pulling out his phone. "Whatever. I'll just order Italian. It's on you tonight, though." I smiled softly, looking down at my tea. "Go right ahead." David tapped his phone screen, reading the menu aloud to Sarah, who had wandered into the kitchen. She requested the truffle pasta and a bottle of sparkling water. David finalized the order and navigated to the payment screen. I watched the second hand on the kitchen wall clock tick. 10 seconds. 20 seconds. David frowned, tapping the screen harder. "That's weird." The card was declined. "Try it again." Sarah sighed, leaning against the counter. "You probably typed the zip code wrong. It's saved in the app." "Sarah, it's Mom's joint card." He looked at me, a trace of suspicion entering his eyes. "Mom, did the bank freeze the account? Did you forget to verify a charge or something?" "No," I answered smoothly, standing up and taking my mug to the sink. "The account is perfectly fine. It just doesn't have any money in it." The kitchen went dead silent. "What do you mean?" David demanded, stepping closer. "There was over $30,000 in that account yesterday." "Yes, there was. And now it is in a private account, under my name exclusively." I turned off the faucet and dried my hands on a towel. "I left you $43. That should cover a small pizza if you pick it up yourselves." Sarah's face turned bright red. "You took the money, Allison. We needed that for the down payment on our house." "How could you be so selfish?" "My pension, my husband's life insurance," I stated evenly, looking directly into Sarah's eyes. "I noticed the salon and the steakhouse charges while I was eating ice chips in a hospital bed. The financial support ends today." David ran a hand through his hair, pacing the kitchen floor. "Mom, you can't do this. We have bills on autopay linked to that account. You need to transfer it back right now." I picked up my purse from the counter. No. Before they could start a shouting match, I walked down the hall and locked the guest room door behind me. Let them eat cereal. The next morning, I woke up early. The house was quiet. David and Sarah were still asleep in my master bedroom. I dressed quietly, moving with purpose, despite the dull ache in my abdomen. I walked into the kitchen and made myself a single piece of toast. Then, I walked into the home office. I located the Wi-Fi router, unplugged it, coiled the power cord neatly, and placed the entire unit into a canvas tote bag. Next, I walked out to the garage. My Honda was parked next to David's truck. I used my original set of keys, unlocked the car, and opened the glove compartment. I took back the spare key David had hidden there. Finally. I walked down to the basement. I located the main water valve for the master bathroom upstairs and turned it firmly to the right. The pipes groaned softly as the water supply to their shower was cut off. I wasn't going to argue about them taking my room. I was simply going to make it very inconvenient for them to stay there. At 7:30, I heard a loud groan from upstairs. David, the shower isn't working. Sarah's voice echoed down the stairs. A minute later, heavy footsteps pounded down the hallway. David appeared in the kitchen, wearing only his suit trousers, looking frantic. Mom, did you call a plumber? The water is completely off upstairs. The guest bathroom works fine, I replied, wiping down the counter. He grabbed his phone. And the internet is down. I have a Zoom meeting in an hour. I canceled the internet service. I lied, effortlessly. It was an unnecessary expense. You'll have to use your cellular data. Are you crazy? David yelled, finally losing his temper. You are trying to ruin our lives because you're mad about one stupid hospital ride. I stopped wiping the counter. I looked at my son, seeing the entitlement written in every line of his face. I'm not mad, David, I said softly. I'm just no longer paying for your lifestyle. If you don't like the amenities here, you are welcome to move out. They left for work angry, slamming the front door behind them. Sarah had complained loudly the entire time she used my cramped guest bathroom to do her makeup. I watched from the window as they drove away in David's truck, leaving my Honda safely in the driveway. Once the street was empty, I went to the hall closet and pulled out a box of heavy-duty black trash bags. I walked upstairs to the master bedroom. The space was a disaster. Clothes were thrown across my hardwood floors. Empty water bottles littered the nightstands. And Sarah's expensive cosmetics covered my vanity. I didn't pack their clothes carefully. I didn't fold anything. I grabbed handfuls of their garments, shoes, and toiletries, dropping them unceremoniously into the black plastic bags. I emptied the drawers they had commandeered. I cleared the bathroom counter. It took me 2 hours, taking frequent breaks to rest my recovering body. But eventually, there were 10 bulging trash bags sitting on the upstairs landing. I dragged them down the stairs one by one, lining them up neatly on the front porch. I didn't touch their heavy furniture or their electronics, just their daily essentials. When I was finished, I sat on the living room sofa, drinking a glass of cold water. My phone rang. It was Arthur. How are things over there? He asked, his voice rough with concern. Progressing? I answered. Could you do me a favor? Arthur, could you call that locksmith you used last year? Tell him I need all the exterior doors rekeyed immediately. I'll pay double for a rush job. Locksmith. Arthur chuckled. Allison, you aren't messing around, are you? No, I said, looking out the window at the bags on the porch. I've wasted enough time. The locksmith arrived at noon. By 1 o'clock, I had 3 shiny new brass keys in my hand, and the old ones on David and Sarah's keychains were completely useless. At 5:30, I sat in the living room, a book resting open on my lap. The new locks held firm. The heavy-duty deadbolt on the front door was engaged. I heard the rumble of David's truck pulling into the driveway. Car doors slammed. Then, a sharp gasp from the front porch. What is this? Sarah's voice carried through the thick wood of the door. David. Are these our clothes? Keys jingled. I heard the old metal key slide into the lock and stop. David rattled the handle. He pushed his shoulder against the door. It didn't budge. He pounded a heavy fist against the wood. Mom, open the door. I calmly dog-eared the page of my book, stood up, and walked to the hallway window. I pushed the curtain aside slightly to look at them. David's face was red with fury, while Sarah looked genuinely panicked, rummaging through one of the trash bags. I slid the window open just an inch. Mom? What the hell are you doing? David yelled, stepping toward the window. Open the door right now. You can't just lock us out of our house. It is my house, David. I spoke clearly through the small opening. I have the deed in my purse. You are guests who have overstayed your welcome and abused my hospitality. Your essentials are in those bags. You have 30 days to hire movers for your furniture. Until then, you are not allowed inside. You're kicking us onto the street, Sarah cried, dropping a designer shoe back into a bag. Where are we supposed to go? You are adults with full-time jobs. Figure it out, I replied. I'm calling the police, David threatened, pulling out his phone. Go ahead, I said evenly. They will ask for proof of a lease or a rental agreement, which you do not have. They will see my name on the property records. This is a civil matter. David. Have a good evening. I slid the window shut, locked it, and walked back to the kitchen to prepare dinner. For the first time in 2 years, the house felt entirely mine. 3 months passed. The transition wasn't entirely seamless, but it was peaceful. David and Sarah eventually sent a moving company to collect their bed and their metal console table. I never saw them during the process. Arthur came over to supervise the movers while I sat in the kitchen, drinking tea and doing crosswords. They ended up renting a small, overpriced apartment on the other side of town. Without my bank account padding their lifestyle, I imagined the luxury dinners and designer bags had come to a halt. One crisp Tuesday morning, I was kneeling in the front flower beds, planting fresh marigolds. A shadow fell over the dirt. I looked up and saw David standing on the sidewalk. He looked tired. The arrogance that usually lifted his chin was gone, replaced by a sullen exhaustion. Mom, he said quietly. I brushed the soil from my gardening gloves and stood up slowly. Hello. David. He kicked a small pebble on the driveway. Sarah's car broke down. The mechanic says it needs a new transmission. We're short on cash. He didn't ask how my recovery went. He didn't ask how I was doing living alone. He just presented a problem, expecting me to fix it. I looked at my son, feeling a profound sense of closure. The guilt that used to twist in my stomach whenever I disappointed him was entirely gone. That sounds like a difficult situation, I answered, picking up my trowel. I hope you two figure out a budget for it. David stared at me, waiting for the offer of money that was never going to come. When he realized I wasn't reaching for my purse, his shoulders slumped. Right, he muttered. turning around. See you? Mom? Goodbye, David, I said. I watched him walk down the street until he turned the corner. I didn't feel the need to call him back. I knelt back down into the soft earth, placed a bright yellow marigold into the soil, and patted it firmly in place. The roots were finally secure,